Hello and welcome back to the channel. Finally, we are back in action. It's been a long time, out and down with the flu and all that sort of rubbish that you get with winter, but I think I'm back. I think I'm really back now. Seems the worst has passed and we can get back on track with all the rugby action as we're getting down to the real nitty-gritty part of the season. That's right, it is the review of the final round of Super Rugby. There was 9 glorious matches for the last time as well, because next weekend it is, of course, quarter final time, and I have something very special lined up for you as well coming in the next couple of days to the channel. It's going to be good. I'll just tell you that. It's going to be very, very good. So stick around and stay tuned if you're interested in some views on what's going to happen this weekend for the quarterfinals. But that's not what we're here for today. Today, we're having a look back at round 17. What happened, the upsets, the amazing, the brilliant, the fantastic, and the not so good was thrown in there as well. Like I said, 9 full matches. So let's take a look, see how many points I managed to rack up to close out the regular season. And we can have a look forward to what's coming up in the future. So let's kick things into gear. We start off in Auckland, where the Blues are at home at Eden Park. It's a place where they just don't seem to lose to the Waratahs. And what a different team the Blues are. With no pressure on them, they continue to perform at an exceptional level. If we've seen this from the Blues all season, there's no telling what this team could have achieved. Now, they were very good. The freedom, the ability to play without that pressure that something is going to go wrong against them, that it's all going to fall apart. They seem to play with that confidence as well, that they can throw those balls not knowing it's going to eventually chop their own ankles off against a team like the Waratahs, who are going for a semi-final spot as well. They needed a win more than anything in the world, the Waratahs, if they were going to keep their hopes alive of going into the next stage of the tournament. Of course, they trailed the Brumbies and they needed to get a win with a bonus point to give them the most likely chance of taking that top conference spot from Australia. Now, a very key stat I read from this matchup is that every time the Waratahs scored, the average response of points by the Blues was 3 minutes. Now, that's a really, really telling stat for this match and the way the Blues have played in these last couple of rounds since their competition effectively has ended. It's instant replies. You get a lead on a team and you keep pounding the replies on them like that. Every time you concede, you're right back on them, hitting points back onto the other side. It makes it almost impossible for a team, regardless of how good they are, to get back into the match. And this is exactly what we've seen from the Blues and the Waratahs. The Waratahs played better than we've probably seen from them recently. They weren't as bad as they had been, that's for sure. But the Blues just kept hitting them back, kept putting them back on their backs, keep smashing them down when they tried to get up. And that was really the backbone of a fantastic victory by the Blues. And for a team like the Waratahs that were desperate to keep their season alive, they were just like the little boy grasping to get out of the pool. They just couldn't get a grip. He just kept falling back in. That's what the Waratahs were like on Friday night. They just couldn't get a grasp on this game. Every time they tried to lunge for the lead, lunge to get within scoring range of the Blues, they knocked them back down into the pool. It was a really clinical style of rugby, I think we could call it, from the Blues. Were relentless, another word that really springs to mind from the Blues. It was great to see, and I hope they keep that and build on that for next season. It's a long, long way away until round 1 in 2017. Another bizarre thing to come out of this matchup was that there was 3 penalty tries, which is very bizarre. 2 to the Waratahs and 1 to the Blues, of course, keeping both the sides right and well and truly on their toes as well when it comes to scrum time and giving away those scrum penalties. The ref was not afraid to go under the post. Another interesting thing out of this match was Angus Talvale, the former Blues front rower, scoring against his old club as the Waratahs side tried to surge back into the game. I think, would you say maybe Talvale would have been better off staying at the Blues the way that the Waratahs have gone this season, picking up a few New Zealanders like Zach Guilford, Angus Talvale as well, both of them no, not really doing too well over there, are they? And the Waratahs as well, not doing too well at all. But, you know, like most people I talk to, we're not really too worried about the Waratahs. They look like they will not be going into the quarterfinals at the end of this matchup, just picking up 1 bonus point for coming within 7 points of the Blues. Both teams scored a few tries, so there's never a chance for a bonus point there. But in the end, the Blues held on to what was, I think, one of their best victories of the season, 34-28 over the Waratahs. Now, in the preview last week, my score prediction was 29-23 Blues over the Waratahs. Final score 34-28, so I get a bonus point for coming within 10 points of the actual score. Great start to the weekend. 2 points off the first matchup. So straight off the whistle, that match really started to give balance to the table already. For the Waratahs, unlikely to take that top Australian spot, with the Brumbies after that matchup only needing to get a bonus point themselves to knock the Waratahs well and truly off. And considering they were playing the Force the next night, you'd think you'd back them to get that point. But we'll cover that game when we get to it. First things first, we're going to go to Suncorp, where the Reds are playing the Rebels in a match that many people would probably gone, ugh, Reds and Rebels? 2 teams not in contention? Really got nothing to add to this competition. But if you did say that to this match, I think you owe these 2 teams an apology, because I think this was really a nice little matchup. Now, I'm not going to say it was a blockbuster and 2 sides coming at each other end to end, neck to neck, nothing like that. It was just a nice, semi-exciting kind of matchup that, at the end of it, you're sitting there going, well, who's going to win this one? It's quite tight, it's quite exciting. And that's what this match really delivered, which was great to see. A really good, entertaining matchup for the few that probably went to actually see it as well. The Rebels actually surged out to a very, very early lead. It looked like it was going to be bad news all night for the Reds. 24-7 they led at half-time, which is a pretty good lead. And the way the Reds have played this year over the whole season, you kind of say, well, that's probably their lot. They'll see this one out and they'll look towards 2017. But never count out the Reds. Never count out the Reds at all. They stormed into the second half and they fought right back into this matchup, and they were led by one man who's really starting to stand out in this Reds outfit as a leader in the number 9 or 10 jumper, and that is Nick Frisby. Now, I've never really rated him as a world-class player or anything like that, but he seems to be thriving under this Reds environment where the leadership is all on his shoulders, and it seems to really bring out the best in him. I thought he led the team in the second half very well for the Reds and brought them right back into the game, to the point near the end that they were only 3 points adrift. They couldn't get that final killer play, but they did give the Rebels one hell of a fright. I mean, stalling back from 24-7 to go down 31-28 is an extremely very good effort. Now, you can't take anything away from the Reds. They had the passion to get straight back into this matchup, and they had a number of good performers. From the Rebels side of things, I think Sean McMahon, absolute ridiculous the way he plays. He is one of the world's best at the moment. I think the Wallabies need to stop looking at the whole Hooper Pocock thing, because I think they might be looking in the wrong direction now. They need to start looking at this young talent like Sean McMahon. He is a tremendous player, and I think he has a massive future if the Wallabies can start cutting down those old trees in their forward pack. It was a super tense finish. It was really exciting, as I said before, and I was quite surprised and quietly happy that this match went this way. 3 points difference in the last few minutes. The Reds hot on attack. Could have stolen it. They could have done it, but they didn't in the end. And I really felt for the Reds. I thought they could have won that game. It would have been good if they did. But the Rebels, they go out with their best season of Super Rugby so far in the team's history. For the Reds, on the other hand, they've got a few players leaving. Most notably will be Liam Gill, the open side flanker. A big loss, a massive loss. So young and so talented already. And you got to wonder if he was in the Brumbies or the Waratahs. Maybe his career may have been a bit brighter. You got to think about Sean McMahon in the same light as well. These lower place sides don't get the recognition from these higher up players. We talk about the lower place sides of Force, and we talk about Matt Hodgson as well. Very good flankers, 3 teams 3 very good 7s, and you just got to look at them and say, yeah, does Hooper deserve all that time in the number 7 yellow jumper? That's another discussion for another day. On track though, it was the Rebels who took it out 31-28 in a full-time score. My prediction was the Reds 36-33. So if the closest of that score, I actually still pick up a bonus point for the two teams being within 10 points of what I first predicted. I just don't get a point for getting the correct winner. So I'll still take 1 bonus point from the Reds and the Rebels. We cross over to South Africa for a rare Friday night game in Durban at Kings Park, where the Sharks were up against the Sunwolves. And for the Sharks, they had something on the line here, unlike the last game, which was just a nice little friendly. The Sharks here, they needed to put their wildcard spot in concrete. That was their main target, their main objective, to take the win, take a bonus point, and take their wildcard spot, not leave anything up to chance when the Bulls played later against the Cheetahs. And you've got to say, against the Sunwolves, probably always going to be favourites to do that as well. But what actually transpired here was just about the complete opposite. The Sharks were less than convincing, and always going to be a tough ask for the Sunwolves to really upset the party here for the Sharks. But the Sharks, like I said before, they didn't play their best game whatsoever. They had glimpses that were pretty decent, but the Sunwolves, well, they were well and truly there or thereabouts, and they did spoil the party somewhat, restricting the Sharks away from that bonus point as well. But when you look at the equation here, the Sharks are always going to be up against the number 1 qualifier. Now, regardless of whether that ended up being the Hurricanes or the Lions, of course we know now it is the Hurricanes, but either way, it could have been the Chiefs, it could have been the Crusaders, could have been the Highlanders, could have been whoever. Either way, this performance did nothing to give the Sharks fans and their coaching staff, even players, confidence that they could go over to wherever, be it to the Lions, over to anywhere in New Zealand, to get the job done. So, if anything, it was a bit of a disappointing performance here from the Sharks, where they really had a chance to get some good running momentum to attack these quarterfinal matchups. So there's much to improve on for the Sharks. That's all I'm really taking from that match. It was never really a contest as such. I think the Sunwolves, they seemed to develop more of that attacking ability back. They got a lot of tries. They were in that intent of getting scores on the board, which is always a joy to watch when the Sunwolves have that kind of mindset. But for them, it's been an alright season. I thought they've been supported extremely well, the Sunwolves, and they've come out and they've done a pretty decent job. Now, no one was going to expect them to wipe the floor, but I think they've done a lot better than most people expected when you compare them to the Kings and the Jaguares for that matter. You got to say, do we give the Sunwolves a pass mark? I've loved their attacking play. That's been the highlight. Their ability and their will to attack at all times. That's what I've loved to see from the Sunwolves, and maybe we'll see something more similar from the Japanese side in future as well. I think the future of the Sunwolves is bright. I think if they get more of their international players back that are scattered around the globe, the likes of Leach and Tui and all those sorts of players, Goromaru as well, they could really be a big threat in the future for Super Rugby. In the end, though, the Sharks did win it. Obviously, 40 points to 29 was the final score. Not as convincing as they would have liked, just the 11-point lead, but you've got to give credit to the Sunwolves. They just love to attack and score points. I grabbed 1 point for that result. My prediction was 44-17 for the final score there, so it wasn't too far off. Sunwolves got a bit more points than I anticipated from that one. We move on to Saturday evening now, and this is where the real nitty-gritty stuff starts. These are 2 really big matches. First up, AMI Stadium in Christchurch, the Crusaders at home to the Hurricanes. Now, as we lead into this match, both sides having a chance to take that top spot, although no one really considered it a possibility that either side would grab a try-scoring a bonus point. What transpired, however, again, was almost the complete opposite. It was expected to be a very, very close match, but the Crusaders, they suffered a couple of really, really early setbacks, losing Andy Ellis and Sam Whitelock before the matchup, just before the game got kicked off in their warm-up. So there was a big loss for those two to be out of the match. Now, of course, it was what everyone expected. It was tight. It was testing by both teams as well. But there was one killer play that went the way of TJ Perenara. A charge down kick right on the stroke of halftime. I think has been the difference between this one grinding out to a result or actually what happened. Because when the Hurricanes come out in the second half, it was an absolute clinic of how to play rugby against a team like the Crusaders, who are very, very good. They were just even better, the Hurricanes. Beauden Barrett, again, he's the leader, he's the chief. He is the ooga boogie man at the front that leads the team forward. He directs the team so well, and he just is so hard to put away. I've often watched him in recent years. I've always loved to watch Beauden Barrett play, but he does, when he's not in the form of his life like now, he is a bit sideways. He's just a catch and pass. It's a bit boring, it's a bit laboured. But when he's in touch like he is at the moment, he is absolutely something else. The threat he carries when he takes the ball to the line, which he doesn't do much when he's not in form, is huge. I mean, he is just, you cannot take your eyes off him for more than 0.1 of a second, because he will be gone. He was ultimately the best player on the paddock, no question, no comparison. And I think Richie Mo'unga's good, but I think he was completely, utterly outclassed by Beauden Barrett, the best of the business currently in the number 10 jumper. The Crusaders' defence, what happened to it? It just disappeared. They died. They were falling off tackles everywhere. James Marshall just went into a three-man tackle and then just slid out the other side to score a try. It went dreadful for the Crusaders as everything fell apart. The cookie crumbled all over the field, and the Hurricanes bench come on and just added more and more impact, and was just brilliant. Now, one man I'm going to give extra special mention to, and many of you won't know who the hell this guy is, but Loni Uhila. Keep that name in mind, whether I've messed it up completely or not. This man, come on, is a replacement in the front row. An injury replacement very early into the match as well, and made possibly one of the biggest impacts I've ever seen in a player, especially a forward, especially a front row forward, coming onto the field like he did. Impossible to tackle. He was barnstorming. He was just huge for the Hurricanes. And you got to mention the others as well. Willis Halaholo. I'm not his biggest fan after seeing him in Southern here. I think he's a decent player, but he performed very, very well for the Hurricanes as well. I just don't know where things went wrong for the Crusaders. I look at their back row, like so Jimmy Tupou, Matt Todd, just weren't really at their best at all, were they? They were just not quite there. Jordan Taufua didn't have the impact he normally does, and that's where the game could have been really decided. The back row, Shields, Savia, Vito, really did comprehensively outplay Tupou, Todd, and Reed for that 80 minutes. So it was a fantastic match, a brilliant match. The Crusaders not good enough on the night. 35-10. The Hurricanes taking it out big time. My prediction was 34-29 to the Hurricanes. I thought maybe I was going out on a bit of a limb by picking the Hurricanes, but they did it brilliantly. I grabbed 1 point for that result as well. And the Hurricanes, following that result, they went into top spot. Was anyone going to stop them? Were the Chiefs going to stop them? Were the Lions going to stop them? We were going to find out over the next day. And the biggest one of all was what was coming up next. We were going to find out a big, big portion of our finals picture. It was Highlanders at home up against the Chiefs. This one, monumental. For the Chiefs, you've got to say a win, and they would almost be guaranteed that top spot as well, depending on what happened with the Lions. The Highlanders, they were fighting for a decent spot. They were down the bottom of the qualifying places from the wild card spots, and really the best they could do was to get a win for their confidence and hope that the draw was kind to them. Now, very easy, very quickly, straight off the mark, you can say this was the match of the round. I thought the Hurricanes were superb, but the Highlanders and the Chiefs were just that next level up. And I thought the first half was very much a very big stalemate as well between the two sides. Their attack and their defence cancelling each other out. Both sides performing admirably in both teams had plenty of chances as well. The line breaks were plenty. I think the Highlanders, apart from a few early little lapses, they dealt with Damien McKenzie's threat very well after probably 20 minutes of the game. He didn't really impact at all. Made one big break and the Highlanders thought, shit, we better mark this guy a bit better than we are. They shut him down. The impact from throughout the injuries as well to the Chiefs players. Tamani Valu didn't make a real impact as he spent most of it on the bench. The Highlanders, on the other hand, they threw everything at it. Naholo was pretty good as well. Hard to stop, but he couldn't get himself over the line until very much later on in the game. Ben Smith as well made a lot of early incisions, but they just couldn't finish the job. Chiefs and Highlanders were almost at loggerheads through the first half as either side really gained that killer blow. Second half come along though, and I think the Highlanders stepped up another gear, if you can believe it. They just kept pounding and they just got better and better as the match wore on. Waisaki Naholo, the finish of the ages, diving over the touchline but still getting that ball down while he was in the air. Phenomenal, just ridiculous really is what it was. But the Chiefs couldn't really match it back. They struggled to get back in the game. The Highlanders, they just kept on squeezing that pressure on the Chiefs. And as they did that, the Chiefs started to lose momentum. They started to lose their way. And ultimately, they couldn't find a way back into the game where the Highlanders just ground out the ugly, the sort of performance you expect from a team that will go deep in the competition. And now with the form of the Chiefs over the last few weeks, you got to question, do they have the ability, injuries, form and all that sort of jazz to go deep into this competition, or will they find their first fault at the first hurdle? That is something we'll discuss in a later video, which is worth checking out, so stay tuned for that in the future as well. But for this review one, the Highlanders is too good the second half. That's what it come down to. Too clinical, finished their chances, and what was really for two very good attacking sides, a very low scoring match. Now my prediction for this one was 23-18. Highlanders to win it by 5. Final score was 25-15. The lead was 10, so I wasn't too far off there, and I grabbed myself 2 points for that fantastic prediction of that fantastic matchup. Okay, so we left the shores of New Zealand and made our way over to Australia, where the Brumbies were in action. And now the Brumbies know that they go into this matchup against the Western Force, needing a point to claim the Australian Conference. That's all, just a point. But the Force are that banana skin team, and they just don't go away. They keep persisting and pecking away. They're that annoying little bird knocking at the wood in your window on a Saturday or Sunday morning. They are that annoying team that they can just ruin what could be a good season with one matchup. The Brumbies, I think, throughout this game were rather unconvincing. They only needed that 1 point and they played as if they needed nothing more. They will need to take a serious look at their form and how they play if they're going to be a threat over these knockout stages of the tournament as well, because against a team like the Force, in a match like that with a must-win, even though it's only 1 point, you'd still expect the team to batten up, to take the points, to score tries. But the Force, they just nuggeted it out, didn't they? They just kept their heads down and they fought really hard as a Force team to do. But again, they didn't take the reward. The Brumbies' talent come through too good against the Force. And as the Force's season comes to a close, you've got to look back on the year and say, no, it wasn't good. They didn't perform as well as they could or should. But I think it's a big positive for them in terms of their player development, getting players into the Wallabies, like Dane Haylett-Petty, I think is really becoming a top-class back as well in his own right in the Australian team and in the Force team. They've developed well, and I think, a couple of years' time, if they can keep it together, they could be a decent side, but it's hard to see it travelling too fast when they keep changing players so much, and the Force just don't seem to have that ability to attract the very best. As for the Brumbies, there's one thing I'm going to mention about the Brumbies, and that's 9, 10 and 12. Kubeli, Lealiifano, Tamua. Now that combination should be absolutely deadly. Although Lealiifano was decent in the latter portion of that match against the Force, he controlled the game all right, but against a better side could very easily be put off that game. But that 9, 10, 12 combination should really control any matchup around the world. Regardless of opponent, they may not win a match, but they should control a match, especially when they have the ball and they dominate a game like they did against the Force. You've got to expect a team with those 3 names to get the job done. It was unconvincing from the Brumbies, and I do fear for what they'll show in the playoffs when they get there next weekend. It's going to be tough for the Brumbies, but we think they smashed Hurricanes in round 1. Why can't they return to that form when it really matters? Now my pick for this game was 30-20. The Brumbies to take the win. The actual score was 24-10, so I still grabbed myself 1 point for getting the correct winner. Okay, we make our way over to Newlands in Cape Town. The Stormers were hosting the Kings. And the Stormers, although they've already booked their place in the finals, they know that they're there. They don't have to worry about that. But you've got to look at their recent fixtures and question whether they'll really be hardened for a big, tough, grinding match in the quarterfinals of the competition. Their final game against the Kings, and really, the Kings are no test. But at least they have one thing on their side, and that is that they will be at home. And can they conjure up that form that they had before the internationals, the form that's seen them beat the best? They really look like one of the teams beat, although flying under the radar. I think the Stormers really are a dark horse of this competition. The big loss for them will be Jean-Luc Duplessis. He's out for the next round. Whether it'll be more than that or not is yet to be known. But that could be huge. He's really guided them well. He's kicked very well, and he's controlled and steered the team very well as well. Whether that will be a killer play for them in the next round, we'll talk about that again very soon. The Kings showed that fight, though, that we've seen from them all season. The ability to stick with a team for a portion of the match, a 20, 30, 40-minute even portion of the game, score tries. They're very good at scoring tries. But like the Sunwolves, they just lack the defence. The Stormers put them to the sword. The Kings fought well and truly back to get a bit of more respectfulness into that scoreline. But in the end, the Stormers too good, too much power, too easy for them really to storm away with this game. And the Stormers must be looking over their backs a bit here. They've had easy games for the last couple of weeks again. That's really all I've got to talk about the Stormers, because I think that's their biggest concern. They played the Force in the last round, the Rebels the round before that after the internationals, and then the Kings last. And you've got to say, are these guys going to be at their tip-top peak when you look at the likes of the Highlanders and the Chiefs playing each other, and the Hurricanes and the Crusaders as well playing each other? It's really a different type of game, and they could be a step or two short, which could decide a cutthroat match like a quarterfinal is. The Kings, their season obviously is well and truly all over. I think they've been alright. I've been quite impressed by the Kings from their games that I've watched. Not by the way they've played the full 80 minutes, but if you cut their games up, leading early versus the Crusaders, that was a real highlight game for me because they played exceptionally well for the first half. It was almost the biggest upset in Super Rugby history right there, but they couldn't see it through the full 80. Many more matches like that as well, where they just about stunned their opponents. The Highlanders just a couple of weeks ago over there, where the Kings almost stole it, but they just let it flip right at the end. It was just so close to being a big upset for the Kings in their Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. So the Kings, they've got a lot to look forward to. I think they could be a bit of a threat, win some games next season. You've got to say it's going to be a tough one in 2017, 2018 for all these sides. Two matches still to play here. We made our way to Free State Stadium in Bloemfontein, where the Cheetahs were hosting the Bulls. And the Bulls, of course, this season had been ended by the Sharks a few games ago, getting the big win over the Sunwolves, and said, thank you for coming, Bulls, try again next season. But the Bulls, they're not a team to be put away. They're not a team to be outdone. They're not a team to be shown up at all. And they really, possibly like the Blues, played a bit of that no pressure kind of game against the Cheetahs, and they played some amazing attacking rugby that I've just loved from them. You look at the teams this season, the Sunwolves, lovely attacking rugby. The Bulls really developed a fantastic style of play as well. That's not including the New Zealand sides. We know what they're all about already. But I'm really happy to see the Bulls play this type of a rugby. And I think the future for Super Rugby, that they should be really scared of what the Bulls can offer, because the Bulls can show that ability with big name players. Jesse Creel, I think, has been brilliant for them all season. He's been their linchpin, really, in their backline. And the Bulls, I think, are one to watch for 2017. Not the same way that I talk about the Kings. I think the Kings may upset a few teams that you'd expect them to lose to next season, and maybe get a win or two or three more than you'd expect. But the Bulls, no, I'm not talking about that way in the Bulls. I'm thinking Bulls are going to go semi-final finals next year. If they can keep on this progression of how they play, they are a definite threat, a scary threat, especially playing in South Africa. Very, very difficult to beat as well. But just on the match there, it was the Bulls who were pouncing on everything that the Cheetahs threw up. A lot of errors by the Cheetahs, who really had a chance in the early exchanges. The Bulls were all over them, and the match really just kind of extended away from there, as the Cheetahs really didn't manage to throw anything back at the Bulls. The future of the Cheetahs, you got to wonder if there's a way up from here. They've looked pretty unconvincing, not too much promise in their side. They've relied on the same kind of players throughout the whole season, and it hasn't really worked for them. I think they might need a bit of a reshuffle, a bit of a rethink about their style, about how they play their personnel. Might be a bit of a big season next year for the Cheetahs if they try and break things back down, maybe come back up again in a couple of years' time. Over the next 2 years, the Cheetahs really need to rethink the strategy of the club. In the end, the Bulls really put them to the sword. 43-17 was the final score. My prediction was 25-12, so I was quite a wee way off that one for sure. Still grabbing the 1 point for the Bulls, picking up the win, but the Cheetahs, their season was well and truly over, and they played like it as well. They didn't show as much care and determination as we've seen from them in the past, and the Bulls, they wanted to prove a point, and they were so close to being that wild card South African spot for the playoffs, but just missing out by a whisker, the Bulls, but I think they're one to watch for 2017. Wrapping this thing up now with the final game of the weekend, the Jaguares versus the Lions. This one had everything riding on it. Where were the Sharks going to go? Where were the Crusaders going to go? Where were the Chiefs going to go? Where were the Highlanders going to go? Where were the Hurricanes going to go? Where were the Brumbies going to go? Where was everyone going? We knew who our top 8 were. We just didn't know where they were going to play, and that come up to the Lions. Whether their B team, yes, that's right, they did rest their whole team, would be up to the challenge of the Jaguares. Now, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the preview. The Jaguares and the Argentinians as a whole, a team, a nation, that's no offense by the statement whatsoever, but they do get deeply offended if you take them lightly. They're not a nation, they're not a country that you take for granted, because they will punish you. Quite simply, they will take you down. Now, remember the All Blacks sent a team to Argentina quite a few years ago, back in the days of Ben Blair, Caleb Ralph, and those hopeless, absolutely dreadful players of New Zealand rugby. And the Argentinians took immense offence to that. And almost just about, produced one of the most phenomenal victories against the All Blacks. The All Blacks did hang on by the skin of their butt. But that still proves my point that the Jaguares, Argentina, are not a team, a country that you take lightly, that you really give the B team to. If anyone I was going to give the B team to, the last team I'd do it to would be the Jaguares, because of the way the Argentinians play. When you say, oh yes, we're just going to send our B team players over there and just rest our top players, the Argentinians are going to say, get stuffed, piss off out of my stadium and go eat a hot dog. They will say, up yours big time, Lions. And, well, if you've seen the result, you know exactly what happened. It was the Lions and the Jaguares. Top place on the table was at stake. A win for the Lions would take them to that gloried land of minor premiers, if you want to call them that, for Super Rugby. But it was decided who was going to take that spot, Hurricanes or Lions, by this matchup. And also deciding the fate of the teams down the order, playing 1 and 2 as well, which was big for the likes of the Sharks as well. Now, I always had a gut feeling about this match. As soon as I heard the news about the Lions resting all their players, I just had this feeling. Like I said earlier, right at the start of this little piece here, the Argentinians hate it when you give them B teams. And I always had that feeling this was going to backfire and backfire big time right in the faces of the Lions. And really, it did. The Jaguares, they really kicked it to them, but they took this sweet old time. I think the kicking was ultimately different. The penalty goals was the big difference. The Lions, they were two men down, which proved to be quite a big difference as well, especially after leading the game for 50 minutes, and they started to really slip off if they lost those 2 players to yellow cards, obviously not at the same time, but about the same sort of area. That's when the game changed. The lead was there for the Lions. They were trudging along quite comfortably, and then at the flick of a switch, the Jaguares awoke. It was 22-12, the Lions, 10-point lead. They were quite happy and they were travelling quite nicely, but that's when it happened. 22 unanswered points to the Jaguares. Just blew the Lions off the park. They tried to make the changes, the Lions. They made the substitutions. It didn't make a difference. The Jaguares, they'd hit their props, they'd hit their speed, they'd hit their level, they'd hit their level of anger, and they were right up there, pounding away on the Lions, taking a famous victory in front of their home fans, two big things about that adrenaline that you get when you're in front of fans. Your team is on the top of the game, and you're about to really assert the dominance. Your fans are running behind you. That adrenaline rush, that's what the Jaguares will be getting. Famous victory, beating the top place side before the start of the round. There's not much more it needs. And then you throw in, they threw at us, the B team. That's where the Jaguares changed. That's where they flipped. And I think this could be only great things for the Jaguares. They were the better team. No question about it. They destroyed that Lions side, especially in that last little stanza. And they took a big victory as well. 34-22 over the Lions. My prediction was actually the Lions to win. I couldn't go past the Lions. I picked 23-21, so I grabbed nothing whatsoever from that round, that final match of the round. It was fantastic for the Jaguares to finally get the job done. It's brilliant to see them get the win over the Lions. And with that, Super Rugby round robin was wrapped up for 2016, and so was this final piece for the preview season as well. The final places, for those of you who haven't seen it already, the Hurricanes taking out number 1 position as New Zealand Conference winners. Lions taking 2nd, Africa 2 Conference winners. Stormers 3 for African 1 Conference winners. And the Brumbies, of course, Australian Conference winners. Then we look at wildcard spots, of course, completely separate. The top 4 are always conference winners. So 5, 6, 7, and 8, all wild cards regardless of points. The top 4 are listed by points, and then 5 to 8 are listed separately by their own points. The Highlanders, they go 5, Chiefs go 6, Crusaders 7, and the Sharks into 8. So, pretty simple how this all works. 1 plays 8, 2 plays 7, etc, etc. So, Hurricanes will host the Sharks, the Lions will host the Crusaders, the Stormers will host the Chiefs, and the Brumbies will host the Highlanders. It's simple, it's basic, that's how it works for the playoffs. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have a special piece coming up with some special guests as well, looking over what will be happening this weekend for the quarterfinals, so stick around for that. Be interesting to see how that goes and what everyone thinks of these matches as well. Finally, for the points tally for the regular season, I picked up 11 points throughout this round. That is 7 head-to-head matches right, and 4 bonus points, which is a huge amount, and that gives me an overall season total, you can see it on screen now, 125 points from 17 rounds. I think that's alright. I think I've done pretty well, especially to get over that triple figures as well. It's been great counting points as well over the season, and thank you to everyone who has put in their picks throughout the year as well. You can always do the same in the videos coming up in the next couple of weeks as we look at the final series. Of you who did put in your picks, it was Ben Nichols who pulled out the best of the best, getting 9 points for his selections, a couple of bonus points in there for him, and only 2 matches wrong as well. Overall, a brilliant weekend, a brilliant whole season of Super Rugby. It comes to a close, but now we have the better to look forward to. And it's quarterfinal time, 4 matches. We'll be having a look at them in the coming days. Stay tuned and check out that. I really hope it goes and you guys all enjoy it as well. So look around for that coming very soon as well. But for now, for today, thank you for tuning and watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for your selections as well. And I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.